Kakadosh Boker or Bekiim Bahalacha 2, day 37, Siman 3, page 127, Halakha Vav, Halakha number 6. We're talking about breaking wind. That's or they say it passing gas. I think they say it here. It is permissible to postpone breaking wind. The prohibition about Teshaketsu does not apply to this at all. Therefore, if someone needs to break wind, but he's embarrassed to do so in the presence of others, if he knows that it would be bothersome to others, he may postpone until he leaves their presence. Likewise, when someone is wearing tefillin, he must make sure not to break wind until removing them. If that is impossible, right, he must at least move his tefillin shel rosh out of the place momentarily. So 118. Yeah? He comes and he says like this, 118. This is the ruling of the Trumat Adeshin, cited by Maran Bet Yosef, the Pri Megadim of Akiva Eiger Shar Tshuva, Mishnah Berurah, and the Mishnah Berurah repeated this also in Siman 1033. Okay? Next. Halakha number 7. According to some poskim, the prohibition of Bal Teshaketsu applies as well to someone who fails to blow his nose, where there's mucus built up in one's nostrils. They base this upon the pasuk, all whose life, his spirit, is in his nostrils. 119. The Yelkut Yosef and the Kitzin Eretz cited this halakha in the name of Miskeret Zahav. The original source of the Shulchan Shlomo. It is unclear how he derived this halakha. Right? He comes and he says, from the verse he cited, however, in all likelihood, it did not mean that the verse is the source for the halakha, but only an allusion to it. Although the Shulchan Shlomo seems to equate the need to blow one's nose, right, clean with the acts of urinating and defecating, it is difficult to agree with this position. The Achronim debated whether it's necessary to wash hands after touching nasal mucus, as is the excrement. Right? So he says, as explained, the Kavakavim Sofer, the Mishnah Berurah Yosef, that Shulchan Shlomo rules stringently regarding this, and that apparently is the basis for the ruling. Since, right, he says, since most other poskim ruled that nasal mucus is not the same as excrement, it is unlikely that the prohibition of Bal Teshaketsu applies to it. The prohibition of Bal Teshaketsu is not a Torah mitzvah. It is an institution of our sages. And as such, there is room for leniency. Furthermore, right, the poskim instructed us to clear our mouths and noses of mucus and spittle before beginning the Amidah. Okay, so it means we have to clean everything, everything, mucus, everything, so that the things do not interfere with our prayers. It seems from this that at other times there's no halachic urgency to empty one's nose of its mucus. The response of Vot Ephraim suggested that there's a support for this position from Shulchan Shlomo and the Sefer Yisov Shoresh Avodah. I was always careful to wipe my nose immediately with the handkerchief when it was necessary, even if it was in the middle of something important. I felt that it would be extremely disrespectful to stand before my Creator with filth on my nose. God must be honored in every situation. And this is even more important while standing in front of the Torah, right? Certainly when praying or reciting a blessing. I was always careful about this matter for these reasons. It could be the same, that this was due to the author's extreme piety, and not that he felt that this was mamash really a halachic need. Furthermore, it seems that he meant he always wiped his nose immediately when the mucus was already coming out, right? He did not say, right, that he always blew his nose clean when it was stuffed. At any rate, if possible, it is recommended to try to empty one's nose of built-up mucus. See more about this in Biur Halachas Zilber. On another side, the Mekor Chai mentioned that he witnessed people who took care of never to clean their noses with the right hand. Right? He discounted the stringency, totally claiming that it's boorishness. There's no problem. Because since the putting on tefillin, so he says you don't need to do that. You don't no, because that does exist for the washroom, not to wipe with it. So he says you don't have to worry about that. Okay, number 8. During the era of the Talmudic sages, the common practice was to beg permission from one's accompanying angels before entering a restroom. This practice has long been discontinued. Meaning in the olden days, they used to do it kavdu mechubadim. They used to tell the angels, please wait for me while I go to the restroom. Nowadays, this doesn't exist. Number 120. Okay? The Talmud states that when someone wishes to enter a restroom, you should say kavdu mechubadim. Honored one, holy angels, heavenly ministers, be honored, give honor to the God of Israel. Wait for me until I go here, and then I'm going to come back. That is entering before the restroom. The person excuses himself from the angels which accompany him. The David Bodaham said by Maran and Bet Yosef ruled that this actually meant only for someone who possesses true Yirat Shamayim and is so devout the Shekhinah rests upon him. Other people may not adopt this practice. If they do so, it's like haughtiness. Maran commented that for this reason, no one in this generation follows this practice anymore. And the Shulchan Aruch says, nowadays the custom is not to say it. That Achida explained, citing the Mekor Chaim, that even nowadays each of us have accompanying angels at all times. Unless we don't say it, because it would appear that we are displaying that we consider ourselves holy people. If the following entry, however, he says, in the following entry, he cited the Matzat Shimurim, ruling that even nowadays we make this creation every single time we go to the washroom. In this way, our hearts will be more attuned to study the Torah in sanctity and purity. Likewise, the Maram Papirash also claimed that the Arizal reinstated the practice of saying this. The Ruach Chaim Falache cited the Magid Nesharim, where the angels instructed Maran to say this practice, to do this. The Kaf HaChaim Sofer cited all the sources and concluded these are correct for very special individuals, but others must refrain from doing so. Then he presented another angle to this issue, right? Since the Pitchet Tshuva, that the problem of appearing haughty applies only to practices performed in public view, but not something which is private. So if so, you could do it, because there's no problem. If it's going to be in private, you can do whatever you want in private. Publicly, it's haughtiness, but it's privately, you do whatever you want. Okay? He says like this. Yeah, he says like this. The Kaf HaChaim Sofer cited all these sources and concluded that these instructions are correct for very special individuals who devote all their time to study, but others must refrain from doing so. Then he presented another angle for this. Okay, we just did this. Sorry, this seems to contradict the opinion of Rabbeinu David Bar Daham. He clearly said that it looks haughty. Besides, the Shoma Luria and Baba Kama also ruled that the prohibition of doing things that appear to display haughtiness, right, applies even when one is in total privacy. If the problem here is that the person observing the practice appears to be haughty, logic dictates that it no longer applies, since Arizal taught that you should say it. So what's going on then? So based on this, several Acharonim, the Lev Chaim Kaf HaChaim Sofer, ruled that one should adopt this practice in our times. The Rav Chida concluded this discussion by citing Rav Yaakov Emdin, explaining that the Arizal give the instructions only for people who use the rest of the wilderness. In such a place, you should say it, right, because of harm. But it's not necessary to say it in the city. Likewise, the Kikar Le'eden also said the same thing. He says that as far as he knows, even the Kabbalists do not observe this practice. The Afel Lev concur, writing that Arizal's words applies only in his times when the restrooms were located in the open fields, but in our times, you don't have to do this anymore. Chaim Vital also said that we do not observe the practice of accusing oneself from the angels when entering the washroom, since we don't possess this merit, and there's further evidence that the common practice is not to make it, and this is also the Rav Yosef Chaim the Ben Ish Chai as well. Okay? What is the comparison between the Friday evening angels? Meaning the Friday evening angels and these angels. The Rav Chida cited Rav Yechiel Castells, who pointed out what seems to be a contradiction. Maran wrote on the bench, said we no longer observe the practice of Eat Kabdu Mechubadim, since we no longer have the Shekhinah, right? But Rav Yechiel asked, 1 second, so why do we prepare a beautiful table and couch on Friday evening for the honor of the two angels? According to Maran, there's no angels anymore. Furthermore, why is it prohibited to walk upright or bareheaded, right? There's no Shekhinah present anymore. So why did Maran pass judgment on everyone in the generation, saying that there's nothing? What's going on? But Rav Chida strongly criticized Rav Yechiel for daring to challenge Maran. It was not Maran who instructed everyone to stop. He only testified that it's no longer done. The Rama made the identical observation. Regarding our Friday evening practices, a number of solutions can be suggested. For example, the Ben Ish Chai explained in the Od Yosef Chai that when the angels accompany us home from the synagogue on Friday evening, it is not for our honor, but the honor of the Shabbat queen. And this is similar to the stage's teaching about Eliyahu Navi, that he comes in every Brit Milah. He does not come in honor of the boy's father or the mohel, but the mitzvah. In contrast, the declaration made when entering a restroom is based on the assumption that one has accompanying angels for his honor and his protection. Anyone in our times that thinks that, it's guilty of haughtiness. So that's one difference. What about on Yom Kippur? The Od Yosef Chai added that it is permissible to say it even on Yom Kippur. There's no issue on haughtiness, even in this, but there, everybody is forgiven for their sins. So everybody is like an angel. Just as the angels don't eat or drink or wear shoes, so to every Jew is like that. So even so, if someone chooses to say it, he should not say it out loud. Right? TheKud Yosef wrote that although it appears when Yabia Omer that this is the correct practice, he never noticed his father observing it even on Yom Kippur. Meaning even on Yom Kippur, he didn't do it. TheKud Yosef wrote that according to the Maran Shulchan Aruch, we should not recite the Kabdu Mechabadim since it's an act of haughtiness. Right? Parenthetically, he added that according to the Arizal, people should recite it, and at least on Yom Kippur, as demonstrated above, the Arizal opinion is not that clear. Right? The custom and practice is never to recite it, as stated in the halacha over here.